Hey everyone, welcome to BabyNames Live again. I'm Jennifer Moss. I am the founder of BabyNames.com. Mallory's trying to join. She has some technical problems going on. She can't get her internet to connect, so we'll bring her in when she's ready. Let me tell her I went live. Okay. So today we're going to talk about bad baby naming. And this is a big subject and something that the press asks me a lot. You know, what's the worst name you've ever heard? And what are some of the things that parents should watch out for? So we're going to go over that in this episode of BabyNames Live. So welcome if you're watching live, and if you're watching the replay, welcome also. You're always welcome to drop some comments in the comment box, and I will see them as I'm going through this broadcast, and you can even comment after the fact as well. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Bad Examples podcast with Jessica Romano and Tracy DeMarco. We are their guests this week. Jess was pregnant when we recorded the episode, and we gave her some baby naming suggestions and talked about the baby naming process. And so that's what is on the episode this week on the Bad Examples podcast. And then I believe their next episode, she's going to reveal the name that she chose for her daughter. So check that out, please. So bad baby names. You know, in the last episode with Mallory, we talked about Elon Musk's baby name, XAEA12 or XAEAXII. And since then, an article came out about a couple that named their son Lucifer. It's a couple in the UK in Derbyshire. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If I don't, you can laugh at me. And apparently the council, whatever that is, the Council for Baby Names, initially rejected their submission to name their son Lucifer, which is another name for Satan in, the Christian religion, although it literally means like bringer of light or, lighted one. So the meaning itself is okay. It's the connotation and the identification that is not okay. The council declined the name, saying that the son would not succeed in life if he had this name. And the parents replied that they were not religious people, and they cited the actual meaning of the name. But they didn't listen at first. But after an appeal, the council actually accepted it. So now the baby is named Lucifer. So, we can talk about that a little later when we talk about like publicly identifiable names, but I'm going to go through some tips and tricks and things to avoid when considering names for your baby. Slashed Beauty has asked, has Lucifer ever been popular as a normal name without a devil connotation? No, because I think the devil connotation has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, that has not been a popular baby name at all, especially in like the English speaking languages. Okay, so I'm going to go over some other ones. Let's see. One of my pet peeves is using a diminutive name as a given name. So, for example, and I've talked about this on my podcast, our podcast, is like the name Birdie. I feel like that's really diminutive. It's a little bird by definition, and birds by definition are very small. So to assign that connotation to your daughter, I know a lot of people really like that and think it's cute, but I feel like it's not only an expectation name, but it doesn't do a woman, give her an advantage in life to name her Birdie. Another couple that I worked with wanted to name their daughter Pixie, which I think feels the same to me. And it just feels like you're diminishing the self-worth and the person itself. Princess, mouse, bean, things like that, I would not recommend as given names on the birth certificate. I mean, if you want to use them for nicknames, that's awesome. You can do that. Then you're not like setting it with them for life. The other thing I don't like, and this is personal because, I like to separate my professional baby namer opinion with my personal preferences. So that was professional. Now, personal, I don't like nicknames given as official given names on the birth certificate. I always feel like you should be able to give your child a choice of what they want to use. So, like, for example, I outgrew the name Jenny. I didn't want to use it after maybe third grade or maybe when I went into middle school, I forgot. But I kind of started insisting that people call me Jennifer. It felt more grown up, and I identified the name Jenny with my kid self. So I do say to give the formal name on the birth certificate and then let the child choose what their nickname is going to be, or, use a nickname in the first couple of years of their life, but it's not guaranteed it's going to stick. We used Mimi and Vivi for our daughters' names as, family nicknames. They were Miranda and Veronica. They did not stick, but it's still cute. And we still have the opportunity to call them that, but they're not calling themselves that. So no diminutive names specifically for girls. It doesn't help. Title names is another one. Here she is. Hello.
Sorry. So sorry.
You made it. Hooray.
Oh my goodness. What a pain in the tuchus.
Okay, so I'm on title names. Like, we're talking about like captain and sergeant and major. How do you feel about those, Mal?
Well, I don't know what you already said, but in one letter that we received, when we talked about how we were going to mention this, they were saying that that was one way that that people of color could make sure that their child was addressed appropriately.
Well, appropriately meaning
respectfully.
Respectfully, correct. Yeah. So normally we'd say try to avoid them, specifically like military titles, because those are earned, and it's almost, in a way, to the military, it's disrespectful if you just randomly take a title and give it to your child as their given name.
Right.
Because that's, there's people that really have to earn those titles. So yeah, it can be seen both ways for sure. But I'm glad you brought that letter up. Yeah, because I had forgotten about it. Then there are the royal names like Princess and Your Majesty and Pharaoh and King. And to me, those just kind of sound silly. I don't know.
Yeah. I've never been a big fan of names like that. Do you have an echo? I hate to be rude.
No.
No? Okay.
I don't.
I have an echo.
Okay.
So, all right. Anyway, yeah, so I think that names like that tend to be a little chuckly, meaning people will chuckle behind your back. Oh, yes, Princess Diana. I mean, you cannot name someone Princess Diana or Princess or Prince Harry or Prince.
No, I mean, those are specific people, though. But I'm like, Princess Jennifer Jones, just,
Yeah, no, that doesn't work for me. It's on my list.
Yeah, and they're also expectation names in a way. Like you're expecting them to act like a little princess. And it's
Right.
diminutive, which is something I just went over before you signed on. I talked a little bit about my personal preference for not liking Birdie or Pixie.
I like Birdie, not Pixie, but I like Birdie. There's something just so cute about Birdie.
Yeah, but
It
does a
is.
woman want to be regarded as cute her entire life?
No, but maybe she's a hawk.
If your last name is Hawk, do not name your daughter Birdie, please. As coffee comes out of my sister's nose. Thank you.
It's been an awfully interesting morning. I don't need coffee coming out of my nose.
Okay. So I talked about expectation names, and that is something I really advise parents to avoid, like chastity, for example, honor, justice, obedience, which is a horrific name.
Right.
These were all, old-fashioned puritanical names from the 16th and 17th century. And some still creep into our pop culture today, like honor and patience is kind of cute. And of course, faith. That is probably the most popular expectation name. And justice has become pretty popular. But again, you're putting this onus on your child to behave a certain way because of their name.
Well, how is Faith an expectation name?
Well, you're expecting her to be religious. I mean, in the religious sense, faith or having faith. But then it can also be interpreted in a non-religious way.
Right.
Like
so I
have
think
faith in your success or something like that.
right. So I think that one is more on the edge.
Yeah.
But chastity,
No, don't do chastity. Or charity. What about truth?
Well, I think Truth is okay. It's just kind of a boring name.
It's like Ruth with a T.
Thank you for this spelling lesson.
Now, Ciara just named her son Win Wilson. I'm not sure if it's short for Winston, but the announcement did say Win. That could be an expectation name.
That's true. So,
but then
but
again, it could be also another spelling of Wynn, which is a pretty popular name.
I know a Win. Yeah.
Yeah. Win Wilson is pretty cute, though. Of course, we like those alliterative names.
We do, we do, we do.
What do you think of Lucifer, the whole Lucifer fiasco in Great Britain?
I think that no one should be able to name their baby Lucifer, and it's just a form of child abuse.
I agree. I think that it's just setting that child up for ridicule and hatred. And that's what I said to the reporter. I said, not only is it setting up for ridicule, but they could be in physical danger because of it. People get really angry, when it comes to their faith.
Yeah.
and things like that. So I think it was a really bad choice, even though it does mean bringer of light. I think the connotation supersedes the definition.
Definitely. Right. Yeah. Naming a child Adolf Hitler has its own definition somewhere down in the back. Someone who's a whatever Hitler means.
Wolf. Adolf.
Adolf means wolf, and Hitler means something else. So you can look at a name and say, oh, this is what it means, but that does not necessarily supersede its common knowledge perception.
Right. Yeah. Now, I also want to say that people ask what the naming laws are in the US, and that is all determined by the state. So
Mm-hmm.
each state has different naming laws or name changing laws, and we have those listed on the website on babynames.com. Under search names, so you can find those on there. We're also going to have some upcoming episodes on changing your name, so that'll be interesting, and we'll talk about some of the restrictions during that podcast episode too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then, of course, you don't want to give your child a joke name.
No.
Like
Mm-mm.
Chris P. Bacon and Northwest and Justin Case. Actor Rob Morrow named his daughter Two, which is silly. Two Morrow. So, when you make a pun out of the name and you make it a joke, then you're basically saying your child is a joke because their name is tied to their identity. Why would you give them that disadvantage of everybody laughing at them when they first meet them?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's
So
ridiculous.
don't make your child's name a joke. Then you brought up Princess Diana too. And so I would advise against using publicly identifiable names. Like an established brand or a person like Princess Diana Johnson or Lady Gaga Jones or something like
Right.
that. Or James Bond. Like if your last name is Bond, and that's a family name in our family, it's not a bad association, James Bond, but again, people are going to laugh. And then they're going to say,
Right.
oh, is your name Bond, James Bond? They're going to do that whole thing over and over and over again. So I think that's hard. Like you are a mental health professional. What do you think of giving your kid a joke name?
I just don't think it's a great idea. I think that you are setting them up always to be met with laughter, and they're probably going to be out there seeking justification for being a serious person.
Right. Like they're always going to have to try to prove themselves.
Right, exactly. Pardon me while I do this.
Beautiful. Okay. When we're together, we're still like elementary school. Okay. The other thing I don't like is alcohol names like Brandy Alexander or Daiquiri, absinthe, or although that's kind of a cool word in itself, but Stoli, Tequila Sunrise, like
no one names their baby Tequila Sunrise.
I bet there's a Tequila Sunrise out there.
If your name is Tequila Sunrise, we want to hear from you, and we will send you a Baby Names tote bag.
I've got a big stash of those. Slash Beauty says, I have a friend who's married to a real Luke Skywalker. First name Luke, middle name Sky, last name Walker. What do you think? Well, he doesn't have to go around saying his middle name is Sky. So that's not too bad. Like, for example, Usain Bolt's little girl, who is just adorable. He posted pictures of her. You have to go.
Is she speedy? Does she crawl really fast?
So her name is Olympia, Lightning as her middle name, Bolt, which is kind of adorable because it's really Olympia Bolt. In Olympia, because I assume because he was in the Olympics.
Not just in the Olympics.
Yeah, I know. But it's also a beautiful given name, Olympia. And she's not going to go around saying, hi, my name is Olympia Lightning Bolt. She's going to say, hi, I'm Olympia Bolt. Nice to meet you. But it's cute that he put the little pun name in the middle.
Yeah, there is not much you have to do with a middle name. The Social Security gets it. Sometimes it's occasionally it's more than a middle initial. But I knew a woman named Darcy Dancer something else, and she hated her middle name, but her dad named it because they had a horse named Dancer.
Oh my
And
God. She was
sorry,
named
Darcy.
after her horse?
Sorry, Darcy, if you're watching this. If I have the story wrong, I apologize even more.
Sounds
But
like
yes.
like a doll. Darcy
So
Dancer coming out Christmas.
it sounds like a 70s ad for
Yeah.
a doll. Thank you.
Like I have my Dawn Dancer doll, you know. She came with a disco ball.
But my whole point is middle names don't always matter.
Yeah. I mean, you use them when you get married. You use them when you die. That's about it. When you apply for something. But like when I say that you use them, they're spoken out loud very rarely. And you don't usually introduce yourself as them unless you're like George R.R. Martin or something. So again, and I would avoid brand names. We had an episode about that too. Because you just never know what's going to happen with the brand. I mean,
That's
the same thing with
right.
celebrities. It might go down the tubes. It might be identified with something bad. You know, like I don't know, Stoli or whatever, or Cosmo. You know, who knows? So stay away from brand names. Portia. Well, Portia was a Shakespeare name. I don't know. Chevrolet is a better example. Just, yeah, I would stay away from brand names.
Who named their baby Chevrolet?
I don't know. Not me. Another thing I would say to avoid is rhyming names. I know a great guy. I will say great guy named Gary Necessary. And not only is that funny because it rhymes, but it's funny because Necessary was his last name. And I'd never, ever heard that before.
Spelled the same way?
Exactly. Yeah. It must have been one of those old puritanical surnames or something, but it was really fascinating. But like Rick Glick or Mary Berry, Veronica Harmonica, they end up sounding like Dr. Seuss characters to me. And again, it's a joke and it will elicit laughter from people. And specifically, don't do this with twins. Ugh, that's one of my personal don'ts. I don't like rhyming or matchy names for twins. We have an episode about that too. But I would advise against that.
I agree.
Now, what are your pet peeves in terms of naming, Mal?
I think you've touched upon some of them, but I think I have a secret pet peeve.
That you've never talked about before?
No. My pet peeve. My secret pet peeve is I don't believe in naming people after their parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't talk about that either, but that's a really, really good point.
I mean, if you have to, if you want to, I'm not saying don't do it. It's up to you, folks. But I would never name my child directly after a parent, maybe after a grandparent, but I just don't like the second, third, fourth, fifth. So as you can imagine, the George Foreman family is not my favorite.
Well, that's an unusual situation because not only did he name one son after himself,
he named 6, I think, or 8. So
he named them all George 1, George 2, George 3, George 4. Yeah, he named them all George. Yeah, I think this is in our book too. I say don't name a child after somebody in the same household. Not only is it confusing, but it could be legally confusing as well. When we were first applying for a mortgage when I was married and they pulled Andy's credit report, his dad's information was on there, his dad's mortgage. And they're like, but you already have a mortgage. I'm like, take a look at that. That's from 1973. Like my husband would have been 5, like put it together. That's not his mortgage,
Right.
but things get messed up that way. Also, there's an expectation to kind of live up to your parent or be like them. It doesn't give your child their own identity within the family.
Or vice versa. What if your parent, it was a bad parent? What if your parent was abusive? What if you don't want to be thinking about your parent?
What if you don't want to be identified with them?
Right, exactly.
And the other thing that happens is a lot of times if to identify who's who, they'll call the son Junior or Little. Like we called Ike Little Ike for a long time until he, grew up and was 6'5", whatever he is. Now we can't call him Little Ike anymore. But that happens too. You call them like Junior or Sonny or, give them initials because you have to differentiate them somehow.
Right.
So I think that's a good pet peeve, Mal. And I think that professionally, I think it's good not to name your child after anyone in the household.
Do you have a secret?
I think personally, I don't like top 10 names. And parents are avoiding those right now, but I feel like, why are you just going with the flow? Like there's going to be a gazillion Liams. Like now, once you see a name is number 1, why would you use that for your child? Unless it was really, really important for you to conform. To me personally, I wouldn't want my child to have a name that a bunch of other people in their school has. So that's my personal preference.
I have a funny story. Just so you know, so you better give me a chuckle.
Okay.
But I was on the message boards on the Facebook page for my online teaching, and everyone was complaining or commenting and giving theories after theories after theories about why a lot of these little Chinese kids give themselves, or their parents give themselves, old-fashioned names. They're like, how come we have Jerry? How come we have, it's a cute name.
Like Harold?
Jerry and Elmore, and just old-fashioned names. And then there's Ruth and Ruby and Shelley, and just names that you don't see a lot. And I said, finally, after hundreds and hundreds of comments, I finally wrote, as the co-founder of BabyNames.com, I can tell you, if you look at our website, do you like my typing?
Yes.
Or if you look at Social Security, you'll see that there's a huge upswing in old-fashioned names. Mic drop.
Oh, good. Good for you. I'll never talk to you again.
No, probably not.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and I agree, and we're going to talk about that in our next podcast episode about Twilight names. But I don't want to do any spoilers on that. But for sure, and we have an episode coming up about, like I said, changing your name, and that is going to include assimilation and immigration and people coming to the country to go to school and choosing, quote, American names. So we have an interview we've done about that. It's really interesting. It's an interesting topic.
And actually, that was probably my favorite comment on that same thread. Was one person said, why does the Americanized name or English name even matter when it's the Chinese name that's far more important?
Right.
So why don't we just learn how to say the Chinese names?
Exactly.
Now, I am not the best at that, but I have attended class or workshop on how to say Chinese names, and I'm doing my best.
Yeah. Good for you. It's important.
It is.
I think I discussed maybe in that episode when I was doing the interview, I said, I had a friend named Jovana, and she came over from Serbia at 6, and her teacher insisted on calling her Joanna. or Joanne. Like she would not use Jovana as if that was so hard to pronounce. And so that was that. Like she had no choice. And I thought that was horrific.
This reminds me of some news item I heard in the last couple of months, but I can't remember what the name was, but I believe the student was Vietnamese. Yes, the student was Vietnamese, and the teacher told her, I don't know, in front of everyone, I don't know if you know this, but your name is something like a slur or a sexual name in America, and you should Americanize it.
Oh
and
God.
obviously he got fired.
Yeah.
but,
yeah.
but
I'm going to look that up for the episode.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to talk
do look
about.
it up. It was in California.
Right. So a couple tests that we have to make sure that your baby's name kind of sounds good and to the ear and doesn't sound a little wacky is we have the coffee shop test, which we've talked about. And so if you're thinking of, they have not paid us, so I wish I could have blurred that out. Blur that out from your memory. The coffee shop test is go to the coffee shop and tell them your potential baby name. See if they can spell it or see if they mangle it. See if they say, what are you talking about? See if they laugh at you. Just use it in a real life situation and see how it works. The other thing that parents should do is the introduction test. Like say it out loud. Hi, my name is Jennifer Moss. Nice to meet you. Just first and last name though, not middle. And so you'll hear how it will sound and how they'll be able to communicate it throughout their lives.
My name is Morpheus.
My name is Lucifer Moss. How do you do?
I'd rather be a Morpheus. Did you mention Dick Blick?
Yes, I did mention Dick Blick.
I wasn't on the line yet.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about Karen? How names can morph into something that maybe you don't want to use anymore?
Yes. And so what do you do? What do you do if your name all of a sudden becomes synonymous with racial profiling?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of friends, Karen. We talked about this on the last live, and they just kind of have to bear it. And they're sitting there on social media defending their name. And what are they going to do at this point? They said, a lot of them say the name doesn't define me and I don't define the name, which is true. A name doesn't define you. I wouldn't go around telling every Karen to change their name or use their middle name. It is what it is, really, just as Jennifer is. And, I think the connotation will age out. The same thing happened to Felicia. Felicia after Friday came out.
Not as much, though.
Bye, Felicia. Yeah, I mean, it's not as bad a connotation. I also kind of liken it to the name Dick, which did fall out of style. I mean, I would not recommend parents name their baby Dick at this point. She is a Karen, he is a Dick. It's kind of the same in that it means jerk, ass, arrogant person. And in fact, in U.S. births, the name Dick as a given name, or Richard even, dropped off after Watergate, right around 72 and 73, because they called our president Tricky Dick. That was his nickname after that whole thing happened. And then it just started going down. And really, if a boy is given the name Richard, he's now called either Rich or Rick at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who's under the age of 65 who goes by Dick. That just because of the connotation, obviously.
Right.
So
right.
that would be a name that's similar to Karen in that
I think so.
Public association with a characteristic of the name. And I probably at this point, I wouldn't say for Karens to go change their name, but I would not tell parents to name their child Karen anymore. Not in this climate. I would say to rethink it.
Definitely.
There's so many beautiful alternatives. There's like Karena or Carissa.
Karina.
You can get close without using the name Karen.
Or just go
and
to
putting
Carrie.
that stigma on your child.
Although
Carrie wasn't too great back in the 70s with the Stephen King book.
Good point.
With the pig blood dripping down her face. But I know a lot of Carries too, and I love you. I love you, my Carrie friends. So
I think that the pig blood Carrie is now gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
But my arch nemesis is Carrie, so don't name my baby Carrie.
Ooh, all right.
Story for another moment.
I wouldn't talk about that publicly. Okay. Our next podcast is dropping on Tuesday, and just as we promised, it's going to be all about Twilight names and how they've had an influence on baby naming for the past 15 years. And that's to coincide with the release of the next book, Midnight Sun, which is coming out on August 4th. And Mallory has a birthday coming up too. She's going to be 61.
What? Okay, but let me tell you this. I'll tell the story. Okay. I'm going to be 51, 5'1". No, I'm not even going to be 5'1". I'm going to be 5'2". Thanks a lot. Yes, I'm 51 now. Okay. I'm going to be 52. Thanks for, I don't know what you did to my age.
The teacher.
I know. I'm the teacher in me. 52. Okay. Anyway, so I'm checking out at a thrift store, and I have a couple of teacups that are E2 or Queen Elizabeth teacups. Commemorative teacups. And I found this commemorative tin, like a cookie tin or something. So I'm getting it and I'm checking out. And the lady, who must have been in her 80s, that checked me out said, "Oh, do you remember the wedding? I sure do."
Which was in 1947 or something?
It was somewhere between 45 and 55. And I was born in 68. And I feel old at 68, but I certainly don't remember World War II.
Are you sure?
Yes. Look how beautiful and young I look.
All right. And on that note, guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't pay attention to the crazy person over there. I need to get one of those I'm with stupid shirts.
Hey!
I think I had one when we were kids. I
had one. I think we were both given one.
I know. Just as jokes. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Listen on Tuesday for our Twilight names. Take care. We love our fans. Bye.